What is up, everyone? So, I still don't know if you guys want a specific way you want to be prefaced. What's up, Cheesy Sticks? If you guys want to be yapped about called fake fans, commoners, peasants, I'm a villainous vibe going on. So, I don't know. So, right now, we're just calling out chats for right now. Today, we're going to be watching how Hollow Knight was made and first appeared on Newgrounds. So, let's get on with the video.
Hollow Knight's origin story goes all the way back to August 2013, when two friends from Australia decided to enter a game jam together. Ari Gibson, a skilled animator, and William Helen, an all-round designer, first met each other through mutual friends about 10 years before development on Hollow Knight began. William used to be a web designer, but always had a passion for video games, so he started making games in his spare time.
Not gonna lie, chat. I think I might take a break or have us do like a yap session the next few days because there is a game jam going on and I kind of want to participate. I think it's gonna be just by myself. By the way, Arya's Choice free on itch.io. Hee hee. But yeah, I want to see what the jam's gonna be about. But also, I just kind of want to spend that time making the game, even if it won't apply to the jam. Just to have something for y'all. So yeah, let's see if we will actually go somewhere with it. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what will happen.
He made his first game called Return to Booty Grotto in October 2012.
Return to Booty Grotto? That sounds so crazy. That sounds real. What the y'all's really spamming booties in chat. Yo, he really did say that. That's crazy, chat. That's crazy. Also, hold up. Can I? Oh, let's go. I can. I can remove it. Let's go. I look so pretty, chat, don't I? Can I? Oh, bleep you. Bleep you. Wait, what if I? And then. No! Okay, let's remove it. Let's go. Let's go. We can take off the horns. Even though low-key it does fit for Hollow Knight. But no. We're going with this. In the blue, let's go.
And published it on Newgrounds.com.
Yeah, you guys can emote spam, I don't mind.
After that, he made another game the next year called Lulanda.
Actually, as a matter of fact, you guys should learn all the emotes, so give me a second. Honestly, hold up, give me a second. You guys should learn all the emotes. We're gonna do this. Okay, 1 second. While we watch the video, I'm gonna put all the the emotes, and if someone could either write it down or something. I think you have access to chat because I know Rize was trying to figure out how to do it, and we could make like a list of it. I don't know, but let's just figure it out because I do have like a good few for you guys. So yeah, we'll do that while we're making this video.
She developed with Stencil, a tool designed to make games quick and easy. Just like Return to Booty Grotto, Lulanda can still be played on Newgrounds today. William had plans to turn his 2D platformer into a fully fledged game, but he ran into technical issues since his game was getting too big for the software to handle. When William realized he would have to move to a different engine to keep the development going, he decided to let go of the project. While William was getting more familiar with game development, Ari was keeping himself busy with a wide variety of animation projects. He worked for the People's Republic of Animation and was involved with TV, short movies, commercials, and video games. For example, Ari directed a cutscene for the Wii game The Blob.
Oh my goodness.
In 2012,
like, I know those games aren't big, but I think that's still a big accomplishment. Because even if those games aren't the biggest games, it was still, like, a game that was out for one. And two, like, it's just, like, an accomplishment. Be like, yeah, my game's on the Wii. Like, I don't know. Like, something that I did. I don't know. That's just cool to me.
Co-founded his own animation studio named Mechanical Apple, and produced several award-winning animations. After being friends for many years, and sharing a love for video games, especially Zelda 2, William and Ari agreed to join forces, and started participating in game jams together. Game jams are an excellent way for developers to...
Okay, hold up. Actually, let me make something called emotes for you guys. I'm gonna make a server called or channel. Look, channel. Emotes. Let me see. Text at Utah. Okay, and we'll figure it out there. We'll go from there. Should be good for now. So there we go. Oh my goodness, my head's so big. My head's so big.
Flex their skills and test their durability against stress, since you only have a very limited amount of time to complete and submit a game. In August of 2013, the 27th edition of Ludum Dare was held, a game jam community that's been around since 2002. Before Ari and William decided,
You know one, if you ain't got nothing nice to say, then you're a bingus, you're poop head, and put your money where your mouth is, you little poopy head. You little bingus, you little turd, you little cheese sniffer.
to enter, they invited Rohan Fraser, a talented artist that Ari knew through work, to join their team. These three
You're a
developers
dingus.
formed the original members of Team Cherry. The theme for the 27th edition of Ludum Dare was 10 seconds.
You never see it coming.
Oh my goodness, you guys are making this video so stinking chaotic. Everyone's gonna be like, what the turd is up with her chat? There's a bunch of crack addicts. You're a peasant. All you crack addicts thinking can't get 5 seconds without thinking doing something crazy, you little bingus, you little poop, you little butt munchers.
In the allotted time, it was arguably not very good. Hungry Night was a simple top-down survival game where you had to slay insect-looking creatures and collect cherries every 10 seconds, otherwise the player character would perish. Unfortunately, the game wasn't very stable and was plagued with frame drops. When the team published Hungry Night on the Newgrounds website, it received a user rating of 1 out of 5 stars.
Dang.
The predecessor to Hollow Knight is still playable today, and nowadays the game has a user rating of 4 out of 5 stars. Even though Team Cherry didn't win the
Google it! Google it!
I mean, I think
Voicey
that
dot
goes to
network.
show support that like people, even if they don't like the original thing, once something gets popular, famous enough, other people will. Or the fact that like just because they like Hollow Knight, they're gonna go support the other one just to get like traction. I don't know.
their game jam, and gamers didn't seem to connect much to their first creation, Hungry Night did lay the foundation for what was about to become a highly successful indie game. Especially Ari's compelling art style was something the team wanted to further explore. Before they would start development on Hollow Knight, Team Cherry took on 2 more game jams. About a month after Ludum Dare, the 3 developers participated in the Indie Speedrun 2013
Dima.
Game Jam, and the theme this time around was wealth, while their element was chosen to be Mummy. Although they weren't able to finish their game Tombcat in time for the Game Jam's deadline, Team Cherry still finished and published it on Newgrounds. The next Ludum Dare Game Jam took place in April 2014, with the theme that year being Beneath the Surface, a theme that would shape and refine the groundwork for Hollow Knight. Around the same time, Ari couldn't stop thinking about Hungry Night and the protagonist they had created. Therefore, the small indie studio decided to combine Hungry Night with the Beneath the Surface theme, and it turned out to be a perfect match. Shortly after Ludum Dare, there was another jam with the theme Beneath.
Yeah, no, I was really thinking about that with my games. I was like, maybe I need to like merge 2 games together in order to get it right. But it's, I don't know. It's like you have to actually see where it's going before you can actually achieve it. I don't know. I'm kind of like wondering. Like I want to get the story out there. That's the biggest problem. I want to get the story out there. And so like that's the biggest thing with me is like I really want to have a good story, so that's why I do visual novels to actually have the story part first. And I don't know.
Beneath the Surface, which we thought was really evocative. We missed the deadline for the jam, but we kept talking about what sort of game we could make that would fit. We thought of the little insect knight exploring a deep old kingdom beneath the surface of the world, and everything kinda snowballed from there. Not long after, Ari and William decided to quit their jobs and go all in with developing their first official video game. For the next couple of months, Ari and William were fully devoted to their new project and worked hard to get a proof of concept off the ground. Ari would take on the role of the
Yeah, I'm making a visual novel. We made one called Artist's Choice. It's basically a demo. I can't say because it's free for one. There's a lot of I could recognize there's a lot of flaws in it. I know a lot of people be like, well, game developers can't. No, I could recognize my game has flaws. It was a free game. It's really tough to have people do stuff on volunteer projects. And it's not because, like, it just all depends. Because, like, people lose motivations. So, like, I'm just here, like, trying to, figure out what I really want to do with it. Because I'm like, can I make it more than just a story? Like, can there be elements to it? I don't know. I'm kind of curious. Should I make it like a visual novel first and then make it into like an RPG type of thing? It's like a visual novel, like story, but I feel like it could be more than just that. I don't know. So that's why I'm like, should I like keep the characters, change the characters? What part of it has to change? I like the story, but I really don't.
game's art supervisor, while William would oversee the game's overall design. The title Hungry Knight was originally chosen because the character needed to eat cherries every 10 seconds, but since that wasn't part of their new idea anymore, they decided to change it to Hollow Knight. When it came to choosing what engine to use, Team Cherry decided to take the Lulanda prototype that William had made with Stencil and adapted it to fit their needs for Hollow Knight. Both Ari and William knew they had to focus on the moment-to-moment mechanics first, and this involved getting the movement of the player character just right. We wanted players to feel totally in control of their character at all times, so our model for movement was the Mega Man and Mega Man X series. The Knight has no acceleration or deceleration on horizontal movement. The jump has a lot of initial lift, releasing the button cuts vertical speed quickly, and the dash completely arrests vertical movement, shooting you forward instantly. Any hit they take or mistake they make could have been avoided right up until the last second. It's a principle we try to roll out through the rest of the game, but it all starts.
Yeah, it's one thing. Yeah, you're right about scope. Scope is one of the biggest things, right? Visual novels have um like I guess the easiest scope if you have like art assets and whatnot, but that's if you actually have a story, right? Because you need a story. In terms of if you can do different stuff like RPG mechanics, then you should try. I want to. That's why I have a different game in development. I have to actually think about the story because my story right now, like the concept, I think is good, but the story is so dry, and I'm like, I'm not. I would not publish this. So like, I'm like, I don't know. We're really stuck, and I'm like, the thing is, right? You need traction, right? So I also need to build my channels up. I need to build my channels, and I have to build the game up. So I need to do both at the same time, and it's really tough. So I don't really know where to go at this point in time. I put time into both. I literally spent what's it called? I would spend my nights like I don't get distracted a lot at nights. I would spend my nights, which messed up my sleeping schedule a lot, right? I'll spend my nights working on the story, and the days like with you guys yapping, right? In a visual novel, isn't the story is the most important? Yes. The thing is, like, let's say I have a 400-page story, right? And then you do an RPG, and you have to convert that RPG into a story, right? And a lot of people don't want to do that because you have to do both story and now the RPG elements, and it's just like, dang, I don't know where to go from here. Um, I'm really trying to figure it out. So yeah. So
started with the Knight's Run
Okay,
and
Dima.
Jump, the very first things to be coded. After the pair was satisfied with the Knight's movements, they directed their attention to the theme that sparked it all, the place beneath the surface. Ari and William had this idea for a mysterious kingdom that had fallen from grace, which ended up becoming Hollow Nest. The game is heavily inspired by the Metroidvania genre, and in those games one of the key elements is the map, so naturally designing the world of Hollow Knight became a major focus for the indie studio. However, they wanted
But have dopped as in dabbled? Done a bot of what's a bot of coding? What does that even mean? Of what do you mean? What are you trying to say? A bit of coding. Yeah. No, you a lot of coding. Put the emo. Oh yeah, I have more emotes. My bad. I got distracted. Let's continue on with the emotes. My bad.
to set it apart from other Metroidvania games, and this became the most difficult design challenge throughout the whole development. The map and the mapping system took a long while to come together. We wanted players to feel like an explorer entering uncharted lands, so we knew that the map couldn't work in a Metroid-style way. It couldn't know the shape of the landscape before the player did, but it also couldn't be so unfriendly that a player would turn off the game in frustration. Their solution was to implement an NPC character that sells parts of the map, while also letting players expand the map themselves as they keep exploring. When the two developers figured out how to approach the map system from a mechanical standpoint, they still needed to make it visually appealing. The map in Hollow Knight almost looks like a maze, but Team Cherry was able to find a good balance between suggesting enough information and not overwhelming the player with details. To further emphasize a sense of discovery and exploration, the team focused on giving the player interesting things to stumble on, such as hidden characters, treasures, and battles. A common criticism of Metroidvania games is the large amount of backtracking that's required. Players often have acquired more abilities at this point, making earlier areas in those games much easier, and might cause the overall experience to deflate. Team Cherry was able to partially overcome this problem by making one of the starting areas of the game more dynamic, changing it as a player comes closer towards the ending. A lot of the art in the game was hand-drawn by Ari and scanned directly into the engine.
Scan? How do you just scan it? That's crazy. I didn't know you could just scan stuff with the engine. Just hand draw it and scan it. That's insane. That must be a crazy engine. What? Also, yeah, where were we going? Yeah, the emotes. But I don't think I was saying that. I'm sorry, the engine thing really, like, how you draw this and then have it just scanned in. What?
I photographed them with my phone and cleaned them up on the computer. From there, it's just adding pieces into the world until it feels full. Keep it simple was our visual goal. That mantra carried through to the rest of the art, and was probably integral in us being able to create so large a world in 2 years.
Oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I am so bad at Hollow Knight. We was playing it for a while. We've done Hollow Knight a bit on the channel. We play it every now and then. I'm just not the best at it, so we just don't play it too often. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, we're just very bad at Hollow Knight. we're just incredibly bad at Hollow Knight. That's what I was gonna say. We're so bad at Hollow Knight. I could make me good. Yeah, I don't know about that. A lot of people think they could make me good, and then they'd be like, actually, can you please stop playing?
Ari and William had big ideas for Hollow Knight, and without funding, or any form of income for that matter, they wouldn't be able to execute their full vision for the game. Therefore, when no less than...
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, with my games, right? There's one thing with scope, but there's also funding. Because it's one thing to, like, make a small project, it never makes money, but it's another thing to make a project. Big project, never go anywhere with it, and I don't know. It's one of these things I'm like, okay, so then I gotta really make sure that I make a game I really like, where I'll be okay if it fails. I made a person who never played something like Hollow Knight beat Super Late Game Boss. That's crazy. So like that's why I'm like I don't know. I'm very I have so many conflicting feelings when it comes to me making video games, but I just gotta keep going.
When 5 sections of the map were completed after about 6 months of development, the team felt it was time to try and take it to the next step and launch a Kickstarter. On November 18th, 2014, the Hollow Knight Kickstarter went live, and the funding goal was set to 35,000 Australian dollars. While the Kickstarter ultimately shot past that goal with over 57,000 Australian dollars from more than 2,000 backers, Team Cherry only reached their funding goal 3 days before the Kickstarter was over. Near the end of the Kickstarter, however, donations skyrocketed, so some of the more interesting stretch goals were funded, including a Wii U port and an additional playable character. Shortly after the launch,
Oh yeah, I don't have the second character. Is there a reason I don't have the second character? Because I think I have the deluxe edition. I didn't know you have a Wii. I didn't even know you got the Wii U version. That's insane. Quite crazy if you ask me.
Of the Kickstarter, Rohan Fraser decided to depart from Team Cherry to focus more on his career as an animator and illustrator. Ari and William had now secured the future of Hollow Knight's development and were able to hire more people to help finish the 2D platformer. David Kazi was brought on board as a technical director.
Oh, it changed to Silk. Okay. That's why. I guess a lot of people don't mind. Because they really like the game. So they're like, okay, Silk Song.
To assist with coding the game, while Chris Larkin was hired to produce the game's music and sound effects. Chris had already worked with Ori once before, on one of Ori's short films called Motorbike. After the successful Kickstarter, the team was also able to afford office space and moved their studio to the city of Adelaide in South Australia. Besides funding the development, the Kickstarter was also a clear sign for Team Cherry that Hollow Knight resonated with gamers. It was the first signal, conceptually at least, that we were onto something cool. We ran a beta several months after that.
That it was so massively designed. But the fans are good with that. They didn't just want like a second skin. Or is it like, okay, the thing is like the skin, right? Was it because it was just a skin, or is it because the skin had a story? Because like the way it's phrased, right, it was a second playable character instead of a second story, and I think that's why. I think phrase. So like, here's the thing. You know how everyone's coming at pirate software? I think sometimes phrasing can really throw something off, right? Because I realized like with his Kickstarter, the phrasing was something else. And it just really all depends. So I guess because they were transparent with this, so.
Which included the entire first area of the game, the Forgotten Crossroads. It was a stellar response to that area that really cemented our direction for Hollow Knight. Since the studio would now be porting the game to the Wii U, they needed an engine that was a bit more flexible. With the help of experienced programmer David Kazi, they were able to drop Stencil and upgrade to the Unity engine. Aside from better flexibility, the engine also allowed them to add more visual flair, which became apparent when the developers put the results side by side.
Dang, they really were like, let's go all out. I mean, I feel like another skin is one thing. Hold on, give me a second. So yeah, I don't know. Well, how does the fans feel about the long wait for the second game though? Like, are they okay because it's just like they're excited that the game's gonna be something else, or are they kind of upset?
Hollow Knight was originally scheduled to release in June 2015, and back then the team estimated that the game would only be around 2 to 3 hours long. Thanks to the success of the Kickstarter, however, the team was able—
Bro, that's crazy. Okay, hold. That's crazy. Imagine the Kickstarter failed or like not failed. Imagine the Kickstarter succeeded, got $1 million, right? And they're like, let's keep the game at 2-3 hours. Yeah. Like, imagine if the Kickstarter was a success. You're not. Now we're gonna keep the game still 2 to 3 hours. That would have been insane. Like they're like, you know what? We had a Kickstarter. It was successful. It's still gonna be 2 to 3 hours. I don't know. I don't know how some people will feel about that. Because sometimes the story doesn't have to go longer, but I can understand why people wanted to go longer. Just 3 hours for a story, like especially how big of the campaign is. But I don't know. I really don't know. So
to drastically expand the scope and add more content. For example, the developers added a lot more areas to explore in the Kingdom of Hallownest. More areas also meant more different kinds of enemies and bosses, which took a huge chunk of time to develop. Ari was mainly responsible for all the art in the game, and he has said that many of the character designs were done on the fly and started with a single sketch. Because of time constraints, he wasn't able to iterate on most of his designs, so whatever he drew in his sketchbook would go straight into the game. Sketches like these, while seriously crude, form the basis for most of the game. To date, I've filled 3 sketchbooks for Hollow Knight. Almost everything within makes its way into the final game. Very little is wasted. Most of these sketches are produced on Thursday nights, at a cafe meetup of local artists. The sketches produced during that event tend to cover about
I think that like him, he said very little is wasted. I think it really all depends. Sometimes, like yeah, it's good to not waste it. I think sometimes though, some people can't understand that sometimes you have to waste art, right? Or there has to be something else done. Um, which is one of the hardest things with game development. Like if you see big companies like Square Enix, who makes Persona, uh I forgot who makes it, but you see all like the concept designs and sketches they have.
You
And
never see it
you little binguses! Oh, thank you for the follow. You'll see that they well, I like how I got mashed. So yeah, they get really what's it called? This music's blasting in my ear, by the way. But they get very what's it called? The art. You have to throw away some of the art. Um that music really blasted, so I don't know what I was saying. But when it comes to this, the play isn't just a skin, it's another character, different dial. Yes, that takes so much work though. Some people think like this, I always talk about this. Some people think it's just the skin that people want, which sometimes it is just a skin, right? I think it depends because if the character is just like a what's it called? A blank canvas or something. I think it's a little bit different. But sometimes I'm like like having 2 different characters to play as really doesn't help the story at all sometimes. I think sometimes just having one perspective is enough unless it's really doing something. Um because I noticed like when especially when you're playing certain games, like people want to have like 2 sides. And I'm currently dealing with something, right? Not with my well um okay. So yeah, I guess I could talk about it because the person I don't think would get upset, right? But I am this person had no concept of scope, right? And I told them like, how big is this game? They're like, it's only 3 acts, bro. The first act is like how many pages? I don't know, but like then there's supposed to be 2 different characters you play as, right? And it was supposed to be alternating, right? But it's like it has to be done very specifically, and so now it's like we have no idea where to go with the story. Or it's like because it has to be done specifically, it can't just be done like a flick of the wrist. Like when I write, I tend to write with meaning, I guess. But I also tend to write like, okay, so this is gonna be long, but there's also a point to what I'm writing to, right? Um and then it's gonna be someone else's work to edit the story, to condense it, to make sure that it's not just gonna bore people. So a good example of it is I'm working on prequel to one of the games, right? I think I finished all the story. The big story is 400 pages long, so it has to be condensed, right? And the main central plots of it is there. It just has to be reshaped though. And the one thing I say though is that because a lot of writers get stuck in the perfection of the story, that they don't end up writing the story itself because it has to be so perfect. And that's one of the biggest traps you get into, because it's just like the one who makes it perfect is the editor, not the writer. The writer is just supposed to get the creativity, the emotions, X, Y, and Z, and the editor is supposed to clean it up. So that's at least what I think. Everyone can have their own opinion, but to each their own. And I keep doing this.
A week's worth of final work. Once Ari had drawn a sketch, he would place it into Photoshop to make a digital version and animate it in Photoshop as well. This whole process could take up to a week for a boss character, but for a normal enemy, Ari was able to do it much faster, sometimes in less than 2 hours, including programming the enemy in Unity.
In my reaction channel, yeah. So these videos I put on a channel called, oh my goodness, I gotta speak to this. I put these videos on a channel called Lo-Fi, and then I have my other videos on my other channel called JJ Reads. So I separated the two because I ended up getting people who just wanted to come in for reaction videos, and it just, I don't know, I just felt like it kept unfortunately, I just feel like it just kept messing things up. So that's why I was just like, you know what? We're just gonna have to divide the two. So I just have it on 2 separate videos. So
To streamline this process, Team Cherry used a plugin for Unity called Playmaker. This plugin provides a visual programming system through the use of flowcharts, making it much easier to understand how to implement things like the enemy AI. William, with a basic knowledge of coding, was now able to program a lot of the enemy behavior himself, giving David more time to focus on other programming tasks. In the end, a total of 149 enemy characters
dang,
were
the
created
whole
for the base
Pokemon
version
thing
of
right
the
there.
game, with over 30 of them being bosses.
Oh
It is
my.
worth noting that a lot of the art was conceived in collaboration with William, who was normally very busy constructing the game's systems, but occasionally he would come up with his own character designs. The cartographer is one of those designs. Ari added that Hollow Knight's overall look and feel is really a middle ground between him and William, including elements like lore and dialogue. Speaking of dialogue, both Ari and William are responsible for all the text in the game. They always had a basic plot planned out for Hollow Knight, but much of the lore was added organically as the team added more content. The final version of the script ended up being around 20,000 words long and was all written in a Google spreadsheet. Hollow Knight was influenced by many different titles, such as Metroid, Castlevania, Zelda 2, Faxanadu, and the aforementioned Mega Man X. Furthermore, the badge system that's present in the game was directly inspired by Paper Mario. One of the more interesting and unique mechanics originated from an interview where Team Cherry was asked what happens to the player when they die. We said something like, "Oh, it'll be a great surprise," and then after the interview we realized we hadn't actually considered that yet. We had already completed the knight's death animation, which ends with his head falling to the ground and cracking. We thought it might be interesting if you had to travel back to the place you died, find the skull, and crack it open to regain your money. Then we kicked around some ideas about the skull being possessed by an enemy, or suddenly fighting back, which seemed really funny. This evolved into the idea of leaving behind a ghost of your previous life that attacks you, which eventually became the shade that you encounter in the final game. This is a really good example of a simple mechanical idea we made early on that seemed inconsequential at the time, ending up having a huge impact on the lore and the history and the nature of the character you play as, which happened a lot. As mentioned before, the game's music was performed by Chris Larkin, who was given a lot of freedom and support by Team Cherry. The main instruments Chris used were the piano and the viola, and he worked on the soundtrack on and off for about 2 years, giving him plenty of time to refine the musical themes in Hollow Knight. Since the narrative becomes more clear as you progress in the world of Hollow Nest, Chris wanted to reflect this in the soundtrack, which is why he decided to implement leitmotifs. Leitmotifs are more commonly used in film and opera, and Chris describes it as a short melodic phrase that gets used in certain places or themes. In Hollow Knight, this translates to certain melodies coming back later in the game to connect specific areas and themes. Although there's no real spoken dialogue in the game, there are a lot of voices attached to characters, and most of those were done by William, Ori, and someone Team Cherry shared an office with. That someone is Makoto Koji, who runs her own animation studio called Paper Rabbits, and she provided about 90% of the female voices. Some of the rest of the voiceover work was performed by friends and families of the developers. As the team came closer to the end of Hollow Knight's development, they hired Matthew Griffin to market the game. Matthew reached out to streamers and content creators to play and cover Hollow Knight, in order to create as much word of mouth.
Who's the VA for Hornet? Matthew Griffin? Yeah, this part is the hardest part for me, the marketing, because there's so many people who wants to scam you for marketing, but also there's also like, there's this, I don't know, there's an unspoken rule about marketing where people don't want to share information about marketing, and it's so weird. Like, they will only give you like the basis of the base and not want to actually like spill the tea, and it's like, what the turd? So
Mouth as possible. He also set up a deal with Fangamer to help release Hollow Knight related merchandise. Additionally, he also scheduled many interviews with news outlets. While Team Cherry had already created quite a lot of word of mouth through Kickstarter and the many blog updates about Hollow Knight's development on Team Cherry's website, it was still crucial to create as much buzz as possible right before the game's release. The small indie studio's reputation, and possibly their future, all relied on whether or not Hollow Knight would go on to become a success. While their original Kickstarter goal was set to 35,000 Australian dollars, their estimated final budget for the game was between 90,000 and 100,000 Australian dollars, which was well over the amount of money they ultimately received from Kickstarter and PayPal donations. Because of this, the developers were forced to take out a loan to cover some of the development costs. During the course of development, Team Cherry had to make some drastic changes, sometimes even cutting huge chunks of content that were already implemented in the game. A good example of this is an area that was called the Bone Forest. It was a huge later game area filled with lava. Cutting it was tough at the time. It seemed so cool, but it was totally the right thing to do. William and I were already slammed with all the other enormous areas to build, and they all would have suffered for Bone Forest inclusion. A major part of development was spent balancing the difficulty, especially towards the end, when more testers were brought in to play the game. To get more accurate feedback, they used free applications like Trello to provide a way to highlight bugs and other problems.
bro, I have nightmares with Trello and Notion. Just because everyone has to use it, but a lot of people don't want to use it. And it's rough because, like, especially if you're working with a Discord team, everyone wants to stay on Discord, but everyone hates getting pinged on Discord. Oh my goodness. And then if you're someone who hates DMing people, it's like one of the worst nightmares to be a director. I'm not gonna lie. It's such a nightmare to be a director if you don't have like that go-getter spirit, I guess, where you have to actually reach out to people and whatnot. It's like a nightmare having to talk to people. Oh my goodness, just look at this, it's giving me flashbacks.
Some testers described the game's difficulty as pitch perfect, while others said it was punishingly difficult. From the beginning of development, Team Cherry leaned more on making the game easier through various ways, such as guiding players clearly, offering help through characters in the world, and the general flow of the game. Another smaller example is the slash size of the knight. The slash has been growing through all of development, and it just keeps going. It's grown to the point where you can sometimes whack enemies through walls and ceilings, and that's great. We're huge fans of small game breaks that allow players to cheat their way towards victory. the promised Wii U version was eventually dropped in favor for a Nintendo Switch version. By early 2017, it was clear that the Wii U was at the end of its life cycle, so it made much more sense to port the game to Nintendo's newest console. Yet it was still a difficult decision that Team Cherry had to.
You know what's insane though? I noticed when it comes to Steam games that are like, let's say they're $10 to $15 on Steam, they are way more expensive when it's on Wii U or something, or at least when you get the physical release. I noticed that with Stardew, Untitled Goose, Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight was like $50 for the case version. I was like, dang.
To make, since they promised Kickstarter backers a Wii U port. Luckily, by the time the Switch version was released, many backers had already moved over to the newer hybrid console. After almost 3 years of development, Hollow Knight was released on PC on the 24th of February 2017, followed by the Mac and Linux versions later that year on the 11th of April. The game received universal praise from critics and gamers, with many reviewers calling Hollow Knight a masterpiece. Everything from the combat to the lore seemed to click with gamers around the world, and it didn't take long for the game to sell 500,000 copies. After its release, there was still a lot of work left to be done. For starters, Team Cherry was still hard at work to finish the Nintendo Switch port. Fortunately, they were able to hire another Australian studio called Jumpshark Studios, who helped to rework the game's code for the Switch. The original plan was to release Hollow Knight on the Switch shortly after its release, but the team had to delay the game to June 12, 2018. That day, Nintendo's E3 Direct presentation took place, and during the presentation it was announced that Hollow Knight would be available to purchase later that day. The Switch version was surprisingly popular, with 250,000 copies selling 2 weeks after its release. Besides the Switch,
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, $50 a piece, 250. That's pretty good. I mean, unless it's the digital. I don't know if digital was cheaper, but the physical copy. If you look for a physical copy, I think same happens with Doki Doki, right? Someone was telling me how they wanted Doki Doki, but the physical copy is like $50. I'm like, dang.
Port, the studio was also figuring out how to implement a second playable character that was funded during the Kickstarter. During this story, you meet a character called Hornet, and Team Cherry intended to make her a playable character in an upcoming DLC pack for Hollow Knight. However, in February 2019, it was announced that Hollow Knight would get a fully fledged sequel called Silksong, and that Hornet would be the main character. Between the game's release and the announcement of a sequel, Team Cherry worked on many updates to optimize the game, and even released 4 free DLC packs. Hidden Dreams, The Grim Troop, Lifeblood, and the final DLC pack Godmaster all provided fresh new content, such as new boss encounters, new quests, new music tracks, new enemies, new charms, and so on. This kept the experience fresh for veteran players and gave new players all the more reason to pick up and play Hollow Knight. In 2018, the game was eventually ported to Xbox and PlayStation as well, with official physical editions of the game coming out in 2019. In February 2019, Team Cherry revealed that Hollow Knight had sold over 2.8 million copies. Thanks to this overwhelming success, and with Silksong on the horizon, Team Cherry is able to keep living their dream and make video games for a living. Our goal was always to get ourselves into a position where we could just keep making stuff, and we're grateful we've gotten there thanks to everyone's support. Defining success back then was easy. It was just selling enough to be able to make another game. Had we achieved only that, we would have been happy.
Bro, not gonna lie, I'm kind of motivated to make my my game right now.